Italy has always been one of the world's main car manufacturers. Legendary brands such as Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, Lancia and much more were all born and manufactured in Italy with much pride. But times are changing. With fierce competition from abroad and bad business strategies, the Italian car output has decreased by a staggering 75% since 1990. And so, many of the once legendary car factories are left to decay. Still filled with many traces from the glorious past. In this documentary, we are covering two factories. The first being the old Pininfarina factory, once making the most exclusive cars in the world. After that, we are heading to the island of Sicily to sneak inside a large Fiat factory, with still everything left behind inside. We have to start all the way back in 2015. During that time, cars like the Alfa Romeo Breras and Spiders were left abandoned. These were test vehicles, used for crash testing and driving tests. Some still had traces of their testing camouflage on them. Unfortunately, at the time, we couldn't gain access to the premises. Today, all the cars that were once outside have been scrapped. The terrain we are exploring today is quite extensive, encompassing every aspect of car manufacturing, including even a test track. Let's take a moment to delve into what this terrain truly represents. This area was once part of the Pininfarina company. Pininfarina is considered a coach building company, specializing in the design and the construction of car bodies for other car companies. They have gained renown as one of the most influential companies in car design over the past century. We have reached the test track. Before the cars could leave the factory, they had to undergo testing for production faults. This testing occurred across multiple courses. Some courses were designed to test the suspension. While others were used for water testing. But it wasn't just suspension courses. The story actually begins in the US rather than Italy. Cadillac is known for producing many luxury cars, but many of them were large, heavy and not as sporty as their European counterparts. In the 1980s, Cadillac made a decision to establish a brand new image.
Cadillac Alante. It is a luxury roadster unlike any that has come before it. A Cadillac designed and handcrafted in Europe by the designer of Ferraris and Rolls-Royce.
They call it the world's longest assembly line. It stretches more than 3,300 miles across the Atlantic, linking Turin, Italy and Detroit, Michigan. They call it an air bridge, the Alante Air Bridge, a first-ever air transportation system for a production automobile. One Alitalia and two Lufthansa aircraft are dedicated to the air bridge. 3 flights a week will each carry 56 Alante bodies in custom-built cradles to their Detroit destination.
This type of production was truly unique and above all, very expensive. Pininfarina constructed a brand new, state-of-the-art factory for the production of the Alante, which is the facility we are exploring today. The car proved to be too expensive, resulting in commercial failure. Only 21,000 cars were sold during its 7-year production cycle. We have now reached the factory floors, which still contained remnants of the production line. We are currently at the stage where the engine blocks were connected to the gearboxes. The assembly line consisted of 57 different stations, where various steps were undertaken to assemble the cars. Approximately 70 cars could be completed in a single day. Numerous papers were left behind, which used to provide instructions to the workers. It truly makes one wonder about the dynamic and the lively atmosphere that must have existed here in its prime. At its peak, around 300 workers were employed here. What set this place apart upon its opening was the fact that there wasn't a real need for floor managers. Many tasks were carried out by the computers. This was quite futuristic for the 1980s. The factory was considered a glimpse into the future when it was inaugurated. Now we have arrived at some of the most impressive sections of the production line. One notable feature was a large robot that used to install the front windows of the cars. This marked the end of the line. After this step, the cars were considered finished and ready for testing. Following the cancelling of the Cadillac production, the factory briefly produced the Ferrari Testarossa. However, something even bigger was in the works. Enter the coupe version of the French Peugeot 406. Designed, tested and entirely built by Pininfarina, this car was a resounding success, with a production tally of 107,000 units. The car's sleek and sporty design led it to win numerous design awards upon its debut. It even earned the nickname Porsche Man Ferrari. This period can be regarded as the factory's zenith in terms of operations. Now we've reached the office and locker section of the complex. This is the main entrance, featuring a plaque listing the various activities for which Pininfarina was responsible, accompanied by some impressive statistics. Truly, in the past world of design, it was a behemoth. Other sections have been quite stripped by copper thieves, prompting us to move upstairs in search of better luck. Upstairs we encountered a sort of lounge, which unfortunately was in a state of disarray. Adjacent to it, a rather impressive sight greeted us. This is the canteen, where workers took their breaks and enjoyed their meals. With ample natural lighting and bright yellow seats, it was truly a sight to behold. Sadly, all of the seat bases have been stolen, which is quite perplexing. But why did the factory end up in this state? After the production of the 406 Coupe and a few other models, Pininfarina entered into a contract with Alfa Romeo. The Brera and the Spider models were designated to be built here. These two models marked not only the end of production at the factory, but also the conclusion of small-scale car manufacturing. Following the 2008 financial crisis, it became impractical to produce cars in such limited numbers. With this shift in the market, Pininfarina lost its customer base. The workers began to protest, leading to a long series of actions aimed at saving their workplace. In 2011, the last car rolled off the assembly line, signifying the end of the factory story. And, in a sense, marking a turning point for the Italian car industry. Locker rooms, still containing some clothing and memorabilia, remain within the empty, desolate halls. With this, we have concluded our exploration of the impressive history and complex. It is indeed quite disheartening to witness the decline of such a historically significant factory that was responsible for creating so many beautiful models. Pininfarina was acquired by the Indian brand Mahindra back in 2015. Today, they continue to develop cars and other products, albeit mostly just concept cars. This happened to many of the small-scale coach-building companies all around Europe, with a lack of skill being often the main problem. While northern Italy built beauty, the south was promised opportunity. A new factory rose on the shores of Sicily, a beacon of hope for thousands. We'll start our adventure on the edge of the complex, at the old filtration plant. During exploration, I had little information regarding the security of what remained in this place, so I had to sneak around. Not much later, I was inside the old plant. It was already clear that this part was in a near time capsule-like state. So let's head over to the main highlight, the massive assembly hall. But first, the history itself. The Italian car industry originally centralized around northern Italy, especially Turin and Milan, which were true industrial hotspots for brands such as Fiat, Lancia and Alfa Romeo. To create more economic opportunity in the south of Italy, these companies were pushed to build factories in southern Italy as well. In the late 60s, Fiat Tamini Emerese was born on the island of Sicily. At the time of opening, the factory was a state-of-the-art facility and regarded as one of the most modern in the world. The first cars produced here were the famous Fiat 500. Crossing the massive open space where cars once were stored, we slowly came closer to the halls. I had to look for possible cameras, due to active security residing at the front gate of the facility, possibly checking for intruders. Finally, we got inside the old factory. Once inside, production lines still seemed to be mostly intact. Besides this, it was noticeable that vehicles were still frequently driving within the big hall, based on the clear tracks on the floor. Slowly I sneaked to the first production hall, which seemed to be still in a time capsule-like state. I'm not exactly sure about this area's role in production, but it was clear that this side of the hall was where the cars were nearly finished. Located parallel is a part a bit more recognizable. These yellow colored racks carry the vehicles to give access to the underside of the car. It's in fact incredibly rare for abandoned car factories to have this much stuff still in them. Most of the time, these machines are the first to go when closed down. After 5 short years of producing the 500, it was finally phased out and replaced by its replacement, the Fiat 126. At this time, during the late 70s, the factory was eventually expanded to its current form. When the 1980s started, the 126 was eventually replaced by the highly popular Fiat Panda. Times looked bright, both for Fiat and the workers. We arrived at the smaller workshops, which were quite automated, as you can see. In fact, it looked quite modern. A bit further on, it became clear that the whole factory was still intact, including multiple workshops, production lines and offices. The only downside was that this area was very close to the security offices. So I decided to check out the offices before heading to the riskier part of the factory. In the first office block, rows of old prices were left behind. These prices were sports prices, all related to Fiat. In fact, back in the day, Fiat was known to be quite a social company, prioritizing the workers' well-being to quite a high level. This meant that Fiat organized sports competitions, for example, but also accompanied the factories with loads of natural lighting, outside terraces for the workers, and many other luxuries. These times are long gone today. In the 90s, production shifted to the Punto, which became an equally bestseller as the Panda. But times were changing. Car production became a lot more competitive, which meant that factories around Europe had to become larger and more efficient. Termini Emerese was quite small and therefore less efficient. In 2005, the Punto was followed up by the Lancia Y. And this car was, in fact, the last car produced here. During production, rumors of closure already became louder and louder. In 2011, the factory closed down, laying off a staggering 2,200 employees. Although hope wasn't completely lost, as other companies were in fact interested in the factory. The yellow class we looked at a moment ago were a whole track, even going into the air. Let's check this part out. Walking over the catwalks, the size of the system became clear. Loud, multiple bangs could be heard all of a sudden. So it was time to hide. Luckily, I was raised from the ground, making it a lot less obvious. The bangs got closer and closer, and it kind of sounded like they were checking doors. Suggesting there were multiple peoples within the factory. After waiting, it was time to make the escape. After the closure, the factory switched hands multiple times, but it eventually was sold to BlueTech. BlueTech was meant to produce and design electric cars. In 2019, after an investigation, the financial police arrested the top of the company. It seemed that the company hadn't done anything besides replacing some signs on the buildings. 60 million euros worth of subsidies were transferred to private accounts, which meant that large-scale fraud was committed. After this, the last hope was gone for the workers and the future of the factory. The factory was left abandoned, while the fraudsters bought a mega villa in the north of Italy. Today, the factory has been sold once again. This time, it's probably getting stripped and demolished. These two factories tell the story and the unfortunate decline of a once massive and powerful industry. The problems are mainly in their business strategy and increased competition from abroad. Fiat especially has cut costs by moving many factories to Eastern Europe where the wages were lower. But what both factories also share is the lack of production capacity, with them being relatively small compared to newer generation car factories. To combat this, much of the Italian brands have merged into forming Stellantis, a massive international firm holding 14 different brands. This was a last-ditch effort to save it from bankruptcy, hopefully combining the efforts of the also troubled French companies into hopefully a success on the global scene. Today, the Italian car industry stands at a crossroads, moving away from a small-scale tradition toward an uncertain but hopeful future. Only time will tell how this story will end.